What's going on, family? I'm Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. I'm going to continue to examine 100 years of World Championship fights. We're up to February 23rd, 1938. Joe Louis would knock out Nathan Mann 1 minute and 56 seconds into the third round. New York's Madison Square Garden. In front of a well-invested crowd of 19,490 spectators. They invested $111,698.49. That's phenomenal. The referee was Arthur Donovan. He was stopped the bout because he did not want to see Nathan Mann continue suffering when he had no chance of winning. When Joe Louis would bounce off the ropes with a vicious left hook, and he would drop Nathan Mann. And the way Nathan Mann would go down stood for no more chances of him having an opportunity to make a comeback. He was a young man from New Haven, Connecticut. 22 years of age. He stood 5 foot 10 inches. He weighed 194 pounds. He had a 75-inch reach and had a fighting career record coming into that bout of 39 wins, 4 losses, 3 draws, and 27 knockouts. As for Joe Louis, he was 23 years old. He stood 6 foot 1.5 inches. He weighed 200 pounds and had a 76-inch reach. Had a record of 33 wins, 1 loss, and 27 knockouts. Now, who was Nathan Mann? His name was Nathaniel Mitchell. He was born May 3rd, 1915 in New Haven, in Connecticut. He died October 26, 1999. And he began boxing 1934. He ended his career in 1948. Had a total bout career of 95 fights, 73 wins, 11 losses, 44 knockouts, and he was stopped 5 times. 1 time by Joe Louis. So in the ring with fighters such as Tiger Roy Williams, Eddie Blunt, Arturo Godoy, and Bob Pastor. Nathan Mann is to your left. And he tried his best on the night, February 23rd, 1938. Came up short. I just wanted to take out a second to show you Roy Williams. I mentioned that Nathan Mann's faced Roy Williams. So let me show you Roy Williams. He was a middleweight. Pretty decent fighter. He was one of your local club fighters during those years. As you can see here, 1929. So I just wanted to show you Roy Williams. Once again, I want to try and give as much shine as many fighters as I possibly could. All right, let's move on with some more championship fights. All right, so the next fight that took place, 1938, was Joe Louis knocking out Harry Thomas. It was April 1st of 1938. Knocked him out in Chicago Stadium. The referee was Davey Miller. Stopped the action 2 minutes and 50 seconds in the 5th round. Now, Harry Thomas was 31 years old. He stood 6 foot, weighed 196 pounds. He had a 75-inch reach and had a record of 40 wins, 11 losses, 2 draws, and 31 knockouts. He would face Billy Jones and Max Schmeling. Now, Billy Jones was Cuban. He was from Philadelphia. Pretty strong fighter was Billy Jones. As for Joe Louis, who was 23 years old, stood 6 foot 1.5 inches, weighed 200 pounds and had a 76-inch reach. Walked into the ring that night with a record of 34 wins, 1 loss, and 28 knockouts. He would defeat Tommy Farr, Jimmy Braddock, Nathan Mann. Now, who was Harry Thomas? His name was Herman Williams. Born April 14th, 1906. Ingle Bend, Minnesota. Died February 15th, 1971. In Ingle Bend, Minnesota. So that would be Joe Louis' opponents, 1938 up until the point when he would meet Max Schmeling, June 22nd of 1938.
Arthur Donovan. This is the main event, 15 rounds for the World's Heavyweight Championship. The very capable young challenger from Hamden, Connecticut, weighing one. Little quiet, please, if you will, please. Thank you. Weighing 153 and a half, wearing purple trunks, Nathan Mann. There's your opportunity. From Detroit, Michigan, famous brown bomber, weighing 200 pounds, wearing black trunks, the heavyweight champion, Joe Louis.
As they boo the brown bomber Joe Louis, they cheer for Nathan Mann.
There's no need of me telling you men of your responsibility in here this evening. And the importance of this contest, is that right? I know both of you men are fair fighters, and I hope that you'll keep that record intact tonight. Now, you know the rules as well as I do. Remember about your roll call for punching, because you know what a serious offense it may be. It may be the makings or the breakings of the winning of this fight. Now, remember, when I tell you to get out of a clinch, I want you to stop hitting, and I insist upon a clean break. Now, that's all I want from you, both of you men, and I'll try to do the rest. Now, don't shake hands again, and every blow that is landed in this contest must be landed with a closed throat, or it doesn't count at all. Remember that. All right, now shake hands now.
Now, the man who was, he's right to your right now with a cotton swab in his mouth. That's Ray Arcel. Ray Arcel was against the corner of Joe Louis for 11 fights. And he was disappointed 11 times. Joe Louis starts out with the jab. Very important weapon to establish the rhythm and the pace of a fight. You want to keep distance until you control and figure your man out. Fight just started, Nathan Mann already has a bloody nose from the wicked jab of Joe Louis. What that would do is control Nathan Mann, because Louis have gotten his respect. So Mann begins with a combination.
All right, get out.
Every time Nathan Mann would throw a punch, the crowd would cheer. With Louis punches, you will hear silence. Now what's happening right now, Nathan Mann is too brave in this ring. And he's that way because Joe Louis is not stepping behind the jab. He's pouring it out. And this is what happens when your man gets too big. What Joe Louis has to do now, he has to step behind the stiff, hard jab. Remind him what it was like in the first round when he got that bloody nose. I'm speaking of Nathan Mann. This should not be happening because Joe Louis needs to. Now, Joe Louis threw a combination and he hurt Nathan Mann. He's moving in. He's throwing a combination. He's trying to find his man because Nathan Mann is moving around him. Joe Louis must step behind the jab. Beautiful. He has to continue to do that. And he would set up his punches and he would get Nathan Mann out of there as he just dropped him right now. Beautiful. He must exchange with Nathan Mann at this point in time. He's the heavier man, he's the champion, and he has to stay in control of this fight. Now, great. Joe Louis comes right out to Nathan Mann. He's been sent out to close the show by Jack Blackburn. And he must do it behind the jab. Oh, beautiful combination to the body and to the head. Very nice jab by Joe Louis. Keeps his distance. And he can work combinations behind that jab. Because Nathan Mann is swinging wildly. He's basically reaching when he throws his punches. You can time him very easily and you can catch him coming in because he's leaning into you. Good combinations off the ropes is Joe Louis. Mann will go down again because the way he's throwing punches at Joe Louis. Oh, good body punch by Joe Louis. Another good body punch by Joe Louis. Oh, beautiful uppercut, left hook combination. Joe Louis needs to end this fight right now. Consistently throw punches and keep the pressure on his man. Oh, watch his left hook off the ropes. Beautiful. This fight should be over. Fight's over. Let's look and see what happened. In the instant replay. Oh, beautiful right hand by Joe Louis. Now he gets underneath the left hook attempt thrown by Nathan Mann. Comes back with his own left hook. Shoves his man off and he throws a combination. Catches Nathan Mann with a right hand. They call that a sneaky right hand because it's in the middle of a combination. He goes right back after Nathan Mann. Unloads a variety of punches. Good jab. Good jab. Very important. Uppercut left hook combination. Man never saw it. Now, the mistake Mann did right there, he should have taken a knee. He's not on stable legs right now. And this is where your combinations come into play. Comes right back with another punch. This is Joe Louis. Now, Mann had the false sense of security. He gets Joe Louis up against the ropes. He has no defense for himself. And Joe Louis will come off those ropes with a beautiful left hook, which is one of the main weapons you use when you're on the ropes. You come off the rope with a left hook. Beautiful.
Time, 1 minute, 56 seconds of the third round. The winner by a knockout and still world's heavyweight champion, Joe Louis. Over here, please.
May 31st, 1938. World Featherweight Champion, Homicide Hank, becomes a 2 World Weight Division champion when he faced Barney Ross, New York's Madison Square Garden Bowl. It's in front of 26,430 spectators. They witnessed history, resulting in a cash box of $160,861 for Mike Jacobs, Madison Square Garden, Long Island Bowl. It was a spectacle of an event. Referee was Billy Kavanaugh. Names like Sammy Julian and Frankie Blair, Davey Dave, was also on the card. Barney Ross was 28 years old. He stood 5 foot 7 inches and he had a 67-inch reach. Had a fighting career record coming into this bout of 74 wins, 3 losses, 3 draws, and 22 knockouts. He was in the ring with fighters such as Jimmy McLaurin, Tony Canzoneri, and Lou Ambers. Barney Ross was from Chicago, and he could fight. At the age of 2 years old, he left New York, went to Chicago. 14, his father was killed by the mafia because he was late on a debt of a loan that he borrowed to try to start a family business, grocery store. And his sister was sent off to an orphanage. Barney ran the streets, but he made something of himself. He went into the Chicago Golden Gloves, and he would become the welterweight champion of the world twice. Henry Armstrong was 28 years old. He stood 5 foot 5.5 inches and had a 67-inch reach. He walked into the ring that night with a record of 89 wins, 12 losses, 7 draws, and 60 knockouts. And Henry Armstrong was a featherweight champion, first black featherweight champion of America, when he knocked out Peter Cerrone in 6 rounds. It was in the middle of 37 victories. Henry Armstrong was something else. He had 27 victories with 26 knockouts. It happened in 1937. The only fighter that Henry Armstrong didn't knock out was Albie Sporley. But he would knock him out in 42 and 44. The referee had raised the hand of Henry Armstrong. And Armstrong would now become a 2 World Weight Division champion. And what you don't quite understand is what this meant to the African American community. Because Joe Louis was knocked out in the 12th round by Max Melling in 1936. But he would become champion in 37, the same year Henry Armstrong would. But Armstrong was now a 2 weight division champion. Joe Louis had to do something to get his credibility back, be on board with his old pal Henry Armstrong. So June 22nd, Joe Louis would be meeting Max Schmeling. But at this point in time, Henry Armstrong would defeat Barney Ross. And the only way Henry Armstrong even got that fight was that Barney Ross and Armstrong had the same manager, Willie Mean. Two outstanding fighters these two men were in that welterweight division. Was his story. Now, Jimmy McLaurin would become the welterweight champion of the world when he defeated young Corbett III, knocked him out in one round. And that shook up the boxing industry. They saw a new era come into play. McLaurin had defeated Benny Leonard. But Barney Ross would defeat Jimmy McLaurin. Now, he would lose to McLaurin in a rematch. But in a rubber match, he would get his title back. I was curious to see who would defeat Barney Ross. Because Barney Ross was that good of a fighter. But then you would have Hammer and Henry Armstrong, who challenged Barney Ross. They would carry him 15 rounds and become a 2 world weight division champion. Phenomenal. And why this is so personal to me? Because you had many black fighters who tried to get opportunities, such as Dave Holly, Bobby Dobbs, and they were held back from those opportunities. Speaking of Joe Gans for one moment, Joe Gans had faced Dave Holly, and the very next day, he would go 300 miles to Boston for Dave Holly in Philadelphia. And the very next day, he would go 300 miles to challenge Sam Langford. So that's when fighting was fighting. But those are the opportunities those men would have facing one another. Unbelievable. Henry Armstrong will accomplish what he has accomplished with Barney Ross. Let's take a look.
Scheduled 15-round title bout between welterweight champion Barney Ross and Henry Armstrong. Hurricane Hank. Ross with a white stripe on his front. Ross is 2 inches taller than Armstrong and also has the longer reach. Call Armstrong Hurricane Hank, and he sure is.
The pressure that Henry Armstrong applies to his opponent. It's amazing. And I think he would shadow box 15 rounds before he entered the ring. In the locker room. It's fascinating.
Ross won his welterweight crown from Jimmy McLaurin just 3 years before. Barney's one of the most popular fighters in the ring today. He's classy, he can hit, he always gives the fans a run for their money.
Now look at that pirouette Barney Ross just did on Henry Armstrong. But Henry Armstrong came up at a time where he could not change in the dressing room many times in many states.
Armstrong packing.
He had to change in a closet.
He's like a windmill in a hurricane.
And that's where he would shadow box many times. Beautiful body punch, a head punch at the same time. And this is where Mike Tyson, believe it or not, got a lot of his combinations. A lot of people don't know that. Henry Armstrong is a beautiful pressure fighter.
Now champs finding the ring.
And he didn't want to knock out Barney Ross. Because Eddie Mead
Armstrong moves in again and
had spoke to Henry Armstrong, because he managed both of them, about trying to carry Barney Ross. Barney Ross really wanted to win this fight, but it would be his last fight. And he would receive a very good paycheck for his last fight.
The end of round 9.
Oh, nice jab by Henry Armstrong.
Now there's the old Barney Ross, peppering Armstrong with left jab.
And Armstrong
Again, it was just for a moment.
just continued to follow Barney Ross. He would pressure him. He would steer him with his head in the direction he wanted to go. He would never stop. Armstrong just didn't want to knock out Barney Ross, and Barney Ross, to his credit, had a lot of heart and refused to quit. And he told his cornerman, if you stop this fight, I would never speak to you again.
More punishment tonight than at any other fight. Maybe this is what he was thinking when he said no one would ever have to tell him he was through. He said all he had to do was take one bad beat. Maybe this is it.
But it was understood that Armstrong would not go for the knockout.
The end of round 13, final round.